Hey guys, today I'm going to be breaking down the controversial book American Psycho, which was written by Bret Easton Ellis in 1991. This book follows the wild life of the troubled main character, Patrick Bateman, who's also the narrator of the novel. Bateman is an extremely wealthy Wall Street banker who lives the flashy New York lifestyle we saw in The Great Gatsby. He is the definition of self-absorbed, as he spends a healthy majority of his time using beauty products, applying fake tan, and doing everything else he can to make himself look perfect. He also frequently uses drugs, partakes in aromantic sexual acts, and is completely enthralled by the big-name designer brands of the era. These tendencies are nothing out of the ordinary for a wealthy New Yorker, but there is a major difference between Bateman and his fellow colleagues. He's a murderer. He's a mentally deranged murderer who feels no emotion or remorse for any of his actions. The narration style of this book is very interesting because it is narrated by the main character, Patrick Bateman, so it's first-person narrator, but it is pretty unreliable as he is a self-absorbed maniac and tells these crazy stories from his point of view, which we never know how truthful they really are, and his point of view is very different than the reality from the actual world. Also, this book was banned because of its offensive narrative, and there's very gruesome depictions of violence and sexual acts. So I would say this narration style is definitely not for everybody, and can be a con of reading this book. The significance of this time period is that this story is set in New York in the late 1980s and the early 1990s, and is centered around Wall Street, which was booming at the time. More importantly, consumerism reached a new peak at this time, and everybody wanted to show off their wealth through designer clothing and accessories. This becomes a major theme in the book, as Bateman and his friends are constantly analyzing other people's wealth through their clothing, and they are also trying to outdo each other. This can sometimes make the plot look like a materialistic arms race, because it seems that everyone only cares about designer clothing and who is wearing these clothes. In addition to its controversial and unreliable narration, this book also has many other flaws. But there are also some strengths, where I'll get to later. Many people think this novel is outright offensive because although Ellis does a good job of giving the reader an all-access pass into the lives of New York's elite, he exposes or even exaggerates too much of the racism and misogyny that occurs behind closed doors on Wall Street. At some points in the novel, the repeated racist jokes give off an unrealistic impression, and it seems that the author is overdoing it. Additionally, although it is very important to note how consumerism was and is still the fuel behind the fire that is New York City, the main character, Bateman, appears to be completely obsessed with brand names, and he mentions a different brand name in almost every sentence. After the 50th description of one of Bateman's friend's double-breasted designer jackets, it becomes very repetitive and uninteresting. This repetitiveness is a major theme throughout the novel, as Bateman has a daily routine which he describes to readers in the same exact way every day. Day after day, he goes to dinner with important people, then shortly after he commits horrific acts of violence. Although this plot is originally riveting and grabs the reader's attention, Ellis eventually is beating a dead horse and ends up dragging out the story much longer than it needs to be. With all that being said, there's still some very positive aspects of this book that made it great to read. Initially, this story was very fascinating to me because I was drawn in by the duality of the main character, Patrick Bateman's life. His double life is shocking from the outside, but the way he narrates his broker, day by day, murderer by night story is truly fantastic. Another highlight of the book is the way they depicted interactions and daily life with the high society of Manhattan. Based on family experiences and other works of literature and movies, I believe that Bret Easton Ellis hit the nail on the head while describing the work hard, play hard lifestyle, which is driven by capitalism and consumerism. These two topics also drive the plot and enhance the plot of American Psycho by evolving it from a murder mystery to a social commentary. Based on the plot, setting, and themes alone, I would highly recommend this book to anyone who loves New York or has the patience to deal with a psychopathic narrator. In conclusion, American Psycho is not only a story of a horrific murderer which touches on the issues of misogyny and racism and sexual insecurity. Rather, it is a social commentary that exposes the extreme consumerism and obsessive materialism that was very prevalent in New York at this time the book was written.